I am Dr. Alaina Szlachta, and I am so honored and privileged to be having a conversation with Dr. Bonnie Beresford. You might know her as the creator of the measurement map, and for the next 10 to 20 minutes, we're going to talk just about that tool and how it can help us make measurement easier, which is, well, what I'm all about. So without further ado, Bonnie, just thank you for your time. Tell me more about this measurement map thing. I'd love to start by digging into why did you create it in the first place?
Well, Lena, I think I was in the same boat as so many of us where we're struggling to measure impact. We've got the traditional models, with our Kirkpatrick and Phillips models, and they have been good guideposts, but they don't quite get to they're frameworks. I like to think of those as frameworks, and they don't tell you how to actually
Right.
measure. And I think that's where we get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the problems with not knowing how to measure is not knowing what exactly to measure.
Yeah.
People want to measure efficiency or productivity, but there isn't a field in some database that says efficiency that you can go grab that data like you can a level 1 score.
Right.
And so the measurement map was intended to help connect the investments we're making in people with the strategic goals of the organization, and connecting those dots through leading indicators and ultimately business results, creating this causal chain of evidence that if this happens, then this, then this, then this. So by the time we get to saying our training affected sales or affected some other productivity measure, we actually have a logical argument
Mm-hmm.
that connects the dots, and we've articulated what the specific organizational measures can be. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a way to work with your stakeholders for them to articulate their metrics that they want you to change.
Mm-hmm. I hear so often we want to tie learning activities to business results. And I'm like, wait, let's back up for a second because there's a lot of really important stuff that happens between those two bookends.
Yeah.
And your measurement map and this approach that you've created gives us the what to focus on in between. And it's intuitive when we take the time to dig into it from my experience and perspective, but it's just somehow lost in our strategy and our process. So let me back up. When I first heard about the work that you did, you had a great example in the restaurant industry. And we don't have any visuals here, so you'll have to tell a story. But I really appreciated how you told the story of what that strategy might look like. So do you have an example? Perhaps it's that one, maybe a different or more recent case study you worked on, but like tell us a story of what can go between those bookends and how we'd use the measurement map to tell
The,
that
the,
story.
the restaurant one is a good, easy one. So let's
Yeah.
focus on that. And it serves a couple of purposes. It illustrates the value of the measurement map in terms of measurement, but it also really drives home the importance to think about measurement early when you're doing a learning intervention rather than after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
So with this example, let's suppose you are a restaurateur, and of course, your strategic goal is to run a profitable restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
You want to stay in business.
Mm-hmm.
And you believe that your front of house staff, if you train them better, they can help you achieve that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, Elena, if you're the restaurateur and I'm the learning consultant, I would ask you, Elena, well, what would you expect these people to do? And how can they contribute to profitability? How do you expect them to be able to affect your bottom line?
Mm-hmm.
And you might say, well, they can help me get if they could just help me get the average check per table up
Mm-hmm.
so that each bill, each group of customers is paying more money and or spending more money. And the food costs are getting out of hand, and I know we've got wasted food. So that if they could help reduce wasted food,
Mm.
so you say that, and I, as the consultant, say, well, how in the world would you expect them to contribute to that? What actions do
Right.
you expect them to take?
Mm-hmm.
And you would say, well, we have a pastry chef. We've got a wonderful dessert menu. And if they would only offer people desserts in the right way at the end of a meal, we would sell more.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, We've got a wine cellar. If they knew how to pair the wines with our entrees, I would expect that we would sell more bottles of wine.
Mm-hmm.
And I, as the consultant, would say, well, that's great. Now I'm starting to know what I need to train them on.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I'd say, what about that? What about the food? How do they contribute to that wasted food? And you would tell me that more and more we're hearing people with food intolerances. And if we don't ask about it ahead of time, we could end up delivering a plate of food that they can't eat for various reasons. And it has to go back to the kitchen because the wait staff forgot to ask.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now, as the learning designer, as the instructional designer, you have a really good idea of what your training is. It's not how do I train my front of house staff to be more friendly.
Mm-hmm.
It's no, I need to train them on how to present our dessert menu, how to what the pairings of the wine should be with the entrees,
Mm-hmm.
and be sure that they know how to use our ordering tool to be sure they capture any food allergies and that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
now you design your training accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
And a week after training, you as the restaurateur are seeing desserts being sold. There, people are staying for dessert. You're seeing the wine cellar get empty. You're seeing fewer meals going back.
Mm.
We haven't actually measured anything except what you're seeing, and you're already believing that training affected that.
Yeah.
We've got this causal chain. If we
Mm-hmm.
train them on this and they do that, you will eventually see that dollars per table go up, that average check, and the wasted food and your food costs go down.
Mm-hmm.
So with a measurement map, we've connected those dots between the training to
Mm-hmm.
the selling bottles of wine and selling desserts to the revenue generated to your strategic goals of being profitable. Really
Wow.
simple
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
but it breaks it down. And when you think about measurement in those terms, all of those things are measurable.
Mm-hmm.
Dollars per
Yep.
table, numbers of bottles of wine. And you can translate those now into behaviors.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So
Yeah.
measurement at its
Yeah.
best helps inform the training,
Mm-hmm.
and it helps your business partner know what to expect as the outcomes of your training. So when they
Yeah.
see it, they say, oh, wow, great training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely love the piece and the language that you use around how do our staff contribute to, and then fill in the blank, whatever it is that the business leader is interested in. And then, even more specific, what activities might you expect or hope that your staff would do that helps us to contribute to that sort of interim? Like, profitability is the long term bookend, but one of the business operational activities is increasing ticket sales. That the if ticket sales increase, then profitability increases. When we have that clarity, then we have that question: what activities could our staff be doing to contribute to that one pathway? There's lots of pathways toward profitability. Table
Yep.
ticket sales, and then eliminating food waste is another. And that is so clear. And then it's clear what we should be measuring too, because I hear all the time, we don't know what to be measuring. And so if you get granular about those activities that people can do to contribute to
Yes.
those KPIs, well, then there's no question. It's very easy. And I love your
Yeah.
framework for that.
I'm glad you raised that. Many things can contribute to profitability. And I
Mm-hmm.
hear this all the time
Mm-hmm.
from learning leaders that there's no way, we can't show that we made an impact on profitability. There's so many things that go into that.
Mm-hmm.
The parking places available in town, what our advertising was, what's going on with credit card interest rates. It's all going to affect that.
Mm-hmm.
And we say, yes, it is. We get it. It's not just training. That's the beauty of the measurement map, because you've got these other things and you're building this causal chain and saying that our training ultimately will contribute to the profitability. It's not going to be the sole thing. It never is
That's
going to be
right.
the only thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you see these leading indicators changing and improving, then by the time you get to profitability, you're nodding and saying, yeah, training played a role.
Yep. Yep. And I love this example because then, if this is successful, we've identified in your story two clear ways that training could support long-term profitability. That's reducing wasted food, and there's a dollar amount associated with that, and it's increasing ticket sales. Well, imagine all the other KPIs that surround profitability that training or staff could then contribute to. And so this becomes then one way to prove to our stakeholders there's so much more we can contribute from a training and learning function. Well, where else could we be supportive? And then identify other opportunities to continue that contribution and having that chain, those various chains of evidence, really. And I think what a wonderful way to strategize the learning function is, okay, here's all the ways that we're going to prioritize supporting our staff to contribute to these KPIs. And then we've got this clear line, like you say, chain of evidence for every initiative toward a certain one or two KPIs. And then as those KPIs change and policies and procedures change, we can say, ooh, which training might we need to be updating or putting on the shelf for now, things like that. So that relationship just has a wonderful strategic implication for how we can use it just beyond measurement, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, I've had organizations say that whether or not they measure, whether they do the actual measurement, they find that the measurement mapping process and that conversation, which needs to happen with your business partner, that conversation is some of the richest they can have, because they're getting their business partner to articulate what good looks like.
That's right.
And how the business measures it. And when the business recognizes you care about their KPIs, then they realize, oh, you're there to help them. You're not just there to get butts in seats.
Yeah. I had a
So
question.
It's really important in these conversations to bring in the business partner, because they're the ones that need to believe and help you build that causal chain. Because at the end of the day, you want them to be the ones saying, yes, you delivered a strong return on my investment here.
Yep. I had a question in my community of practice. One member said, how do I help stakeholders understand the amount of time it takes for the returns of learning to show up? And I don't think that there's ever going to be one standard, this is how much time. The time is always a moving variable, but how do you help stakeholders calculate a rough estimate of when those returns might start to come in? It all ties back to an accurate operational unpacking of how do we translate a KPI to learning activities. And so how does your staff contribute to these different KPIs? What activities are they doing? Well, then you can calculate that into, well, this is how much time it would take for us to get some kind of return. And in your restaurant example, it could literally be the same day.
It could be. It could be.
And then in other cases, it might take longer. But another pushback I often hear from leaders is that training is just too big of an investment. It takes too much time to see returns. And I say, it doesn't have to. It depends on how you design your program and the measurement.
And if what they're looking for is, when am I going to see it hit profitability?
Yeah.
You're never going to believe it was training unless you unpack how training is actually contributing.
Yeah.
And with those leading indicators, you get some early measures, and then they start nodding, okay. And it could even simplify your measurement, because maybe you don't have to go any further. They already believe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Another pushback I hear around why measurement is too difficult is often that it takes time to see the impact. And I argue, well, if you have a really clear chain of evidence and the measurement map helps us to do that, all you really have to measure are the improvement, whether it's in frequency or in quality of the activities that we're training people on. And then there's probably one additional KPI that we could track, like ticket sales have gone up or not. And that's something that we can do pretty much immediately. We don't need to wait for months or years to see the returns on that. We can get predictive indicators by just looking at those core activities and those immediate KPIs we're trying to influence.
Now, it is, though, going to depend on your initiative, what your training is. If you're training leadership development, that tends to be longer, because those changes are more subtle than activity of a frontline worker. Frontline workers are much more easy to measure, because they're producing tangible goods and services generally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But a leadership development thing where you have to define, what does good look like? I mean, why do
Yeah.
you want this leadership program? You must have
Mm-hmm.
a gap. What gap are you trying to close? How do you know
Yeah.
you have that gap?
Yeah.
And often they can't articulate that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you say, well, if we can't articulate what gap we're trying to close, how do we know what we're supposed to train them on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If we've
And
got high turnover
why
and people don't
invest
like
in
their
it?
managers,
Right. Yeah.
then
Yeah.
okay, then we want to figure out how we're going to get higher engagement and lower turnover.
Mm-hmm.
If you want higher quality decisions and more innovation, now you've got to define innovation.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that gets to be fun conversation too. So they want to measure these things, but until they actually break down what it is, what it looks like,
Mm-hmm.
you can't measure it. And that would be true in marketing as well. We did an advertising
That's right.
campaign. Well, did it work? Well, what does did it work mean?
That's right. Yep. Yep. So the next question I have for you as we look to wrap up our conversation, and I'm going to lead. I'm going to lead. The wrong thing to do is to lead with the question with an answer, but I think there's more depth you could add, and that is, I believe the really clear value and why we would use the measurement map over other models is it helps us to unpack what are those core activities and those core KPIs, if you will, not long-term business outcomes, but like intermediate business outcomes that influence profitability. I think unpacking that and getting really clear on that is one of the unique values that using the measurement map
Mhm.
offers to us. So I want to start with that and say, is there other value, or would you unpack that value even further to help us practitioners figure out really when should we be using the measurement map? What value does it give us?
Yes, good. A recent Watershed does an annual survey on the state of business impact measurement. And their recent one, I think it was 99% of learning leaders want to measure business impact,
Mm-hmm.
and only 23% feel they have the capability of doing so. So
Yeah.
thank goodness they asked the next question, like why?
Yeah.
And two of the top two reasons are they don't know what to measure and they don't know how to measure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not for lack of wanting.
Right.
99% want.
Mm-hmm.
It's also not for lack of a framework, because we have the Kirkpatrick and Phillips that get us into level 4 and level 5 that say we want to get there. It's the I don't know what to measure and I don't know how to really do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the measurement map really comes in. And when you have your map
Mm-hmm.
and you get your metrics and you
Mm-hmm.
operationalize those metrics, meaning, what do
Mm-hmm.
you mean by engagement?
Mm-hmm.
What do
Yeah.
you mean by productivity? What do you mean by efficiency? And break
Mm-hmm.
those down. Now you're starting to know what to measure, and it actually then turns into your measurement plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
it really
appreciate that.
helps in that regard. We don't, and the kinds of initiatives, Alaina, I've done this for new hire, onboarding, sales training, leadership development, uh, performance management systems. One of the
Mm-hmm.
cool ones cool areas that I've been using maps a lot in is new technology adoption,
Mm.
because we've got all these new learning technologies, the AR, the VR, the chat bots, learning platforms, and everybody wants to know if they're working. And all those
Yeah.
vendors will say, oh, we'll give you data, we'll give you a dashboard.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow people still come up scratching their head saying, is it working?
Yeah.
And I love using the map for that, because you unpack, what do you mean by engaged with the chatbot or engaged with the platform?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you've got initial engagement, and then you've got
Mm-hmm.
ongoing engagement, you've got unique engagement, you've got overall engagement, and you come up with all these really key measures that once you start measuring them, they give you feedback into your adoption process and
Right. Yeah.
inform your communications on that.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Mm-hmm.
just a quick example, we were launching a chatbot, and
Mm-hmm.
this was in the automotive area for sales consultants. They were doing product training on a new model, and they wanted to use the chatbot to reinforce learning. Great
Mm-hmm.
application for a chatbot. And so they had the trainers They asked the trainers to please promote the chatbot and get people engaged. And so we put together a measurement map. How are we going to know all this? Ultimately, it was to sell more cars. We were saying, we don't really care right now about if we're selling more cars. We just want to know, is this new technology being adopted and used?
Yeah.
First thing, initial adoption. How many people signed up? We had about 3,000 students. The sign up was about 16%, 1/6. They were devastated. So we quickly said, okay, why? What's going on? So we broke it out by trainer, because we know which students had attended where and how, the students who signed up and the students that didn't. And we asked the trainers, was it a technical problem? Were the students having difficulty? No, that wasn't it. So we said, how did you promote this? Because we had seen that some trainers, like 3 trainers, accounted for 65% of all the enrollments. We wanted to know, what did they do? And they said, well, we had the students pull out their phones at the end of class, and we used the first session of the chatbot, which is a little quiz, as kind of a summative quiz at the end of our session. So they all got signed in.
Nice. Yeah.
There were some trainers that had 0 participants. They had sent a flyer to the sales manager the day after training. This said, oh my gosh, shame on us. We asked the trainers to promote the chatbot. Just like, what is engagement? What is promotion? We didn't tell them how to promote it. We didn't say, take out your phone, have them all do it. We didn't say, send a flyer to the sales manager. We left it up to them. And that told us right at the get-go, we needed to improve our instructions to the trainers. So before throwing the baby out with the bathwater and saying chatbots don't work, we use the measurement to improve. And that's what I always do, is use measurement to improve. And you want to prove, but the richness is when you use measurement to improve.
Yeah. I keep going back to the value of what activities are you doing? And while it might be intuitive, help us promote this chatbot. Communicate to trainers this chatbot is available. Help us increase engagement. All of these words, communication, promotion, engagement, they're so big and they could literally mean anything. And I think that some of us, we don't want to micromanage, and therefore maybe we don't want to give clear instructions around what promotion means. And yet there's a consequence to that. And if we're trying to measure and improve and be very efficient and intentional, we have to be clear on those activities, or at least give, here's what promotion could look like. And based upon how much time you have, here are some ideas. Whatever. There's a lot of ways to give instruction, but the clarity of our activities probably will lead us to better outcomes, I imagine.
Yes. And then certainly something you can measure, because it's difficult to measure those words like performance.
Yep. Satisfaction, etc. Yeah. Well, the goal that I had for our conversation, and thank you so much again for your time, was to not only let people know what the measurement map is for those that aren't familiar with this tool, when and how to use it, but then more importantly, why is it valuable? Because there are, in my counting, and I'm completely inaccurate, there's a lot more that I don't know, but I've counted 40 different models and frameworks that exist in different disciplines to help us measure and calculate the outcomes of education. And I think it's really overwhelming to know, well, which one should I be using and for what use cases? And I hear the opportunity for using the measurement map is unpacking the relationship between activities that staff will do and KPIs for the business, and really getting that granular level insight, and then being able to measure and then use those measurements and those outcomes to improve. Did I capture that correctly?
You did. And I think it's a nice complement to some of the frameworks that are already out there. Yeah. Whether you go with efficiency, effectiveness, impact, or level 1, 2, 3, 4, you still need to figure out what exactly to measure.
Yeah.
And that's where the
Yeah.
measurement map comes in. It takes measurement from I don't know what to measure. I can't do it
Hmm.
to very specific.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So it's not necessarily, I mean, I suppose you could use the measurement map in place of the Kirkpatrick model or the ROI model, but it also sounds like those models give us a high level strategy of what we're doing. But then the measurement map comes in and unpacks those big words and operationalizes things like engagement and satisfaction and performance. And that's invaluable.
And you certainly may have your level one, level two. You might have learner satisfaction as one of your leading indicators. You might have,
Hmm.
performance on post assessments as a leading indicator.
Hmm.
What we want to do with the measurement map is get to those business results
Hmm.
because you're never going to show impact with learning data. You
Hmm.
have to get business data if you want credible business impact. And the
Hmm.
measurement map is going to push you to that level 3, level 4 with real business metrics.
Hmm. And simple things to be tracking. Tracking, going back to your restaurant example, tracking, did people verify food allergies when they collected orders? That is something so simple, but yet we know, and of course the business will know. Well, I literally have celiac disease, and people bring me rolls all the time, and I tell them, oh, I'm having a burger with no bun. They bring me the bun anyway, right? Like these little things, these tiny little things, they're not very complicated, but getting to that level of specificity is really, really helpful to then be able to measure and show that clear relationship between training activities and those business outcomes. And yeah, couldn't be
And to build
happier.
better training
Yeah,
from the get go.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, that's right. You help us to define what successful looks like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. Thank you again for sharing all of this. I love these conversations. So, anyone tuning into this, I hope you appreciated these insights and this sort of pathway forward as much as I have. Bonnie, as a last few comments here, where can people find you to get more details about the measurement map and to use it themselves?
Well, I am on LinkedIn, but I also have a website called themeasurementmap.com. And I've got links there to other articles I've written and case studies and other podcasts just to learn more if you want to geek out with me on measurement.
Wonderful. Well, I know I'll be going there because that's a new website for me. Themeasurementmap.com. Go there for all measurement map resources. And of course, connect with Bonnie on LinkedIn. I'm connected with her, and I really appreciate all the insights and just the value that you bring to this industry. Thank you so much for your time again, Bonnie. And we look forward to seeing more people use this tool because of
Yeah.
our conversation today.
Let's raise the bar on measurement.
Let's raise the bar on measurement. Wonderful. All right. Thanks for your time. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next video.
Have a great one.